Hello, good afternoon. Sorry if you tried to watch a minute ago. I had my sound decided to stop working for some reason, and had to do a bit of troubleshooting. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm sorry I haven't streamed all week either. I've just been faffing around with a lot of different stuff, I guess. Like I did stream on Monday, I think, for the FX results, for the alerts for the last couple of months. And I spent some time then and also over the weekend like researching AI and seeing if ChatGPT could help me in any way make things a bit quicker, like on the admin side, like when I do the timestamps of the videos, for example, it's time consuming. And then also trying to cut shorts, which I haven't done since the start of the year, but need to do more of in the hope that I'll get more viewers and more activity. I realized that ChatGPT is actually quite useless and quite scary in its incompetence. And then I was told to use Gemini, which was a bit better, but so I'm told that ChatGPT only has, I forget which one, like one of them has 10,000 data points and the other one has a lot more, or one has 10,000 and the other has a lot less, but I forget which, but ChatGPT doesn't have many and Gemini has loads more. So Gemini apparently is the way to go. So what I was finding is when I was running out of data points on ChatGPT, it makes stuff up. And I was astounded. I was like, I compared it to like, I felt like I was training somebody really bad at work, that when you sort of explain, somebody's new and you explain how to do something, and then they come back to you and go, here, I've done it. And you go and you sort of say, well, you haven't done this, this, and this, and they go away. But they are incapable of fixing any issues that you tell. That's basically what happened with ChatGPT. Like the more I was trying to refine it, almost the further I was getting away from where I actually wanted to be, which was kind of astounding, to the point that it then started making things up. And then I was replying to it saying, well, that doesn't appear in the video at all. Did you just make that up? And then it was going, yes, good pickup. It didn't appear in the video. I'll refine it for you. And I'm like, well, like, you can't just make things up. And so it kind of scared me that a lot of people are relying so heavily on this. Anyway, I've kind of given up on it. I feel like I can use it for the timestamps thing anyway to help me like at the start. But then I think I'm always going to need to have some sort of manual refinement of some sort and checks, because I don't trust it. Hopefully down the track I'll be able to. And then I still need to get on to testing all the clipping kind of AIs that you can use to see if they're any good. I tried a couple. I mean, there's some cool stuff out there. There's some stuff that removed all my ums and ahs from the video. And wow, I didn't realize how much I say and ah. And not only from the transcript, but it will remove it from the entire video if you want, including your pauses and everything. I didn't realize it was quite so easy, but given I mostly live stream, it's somewhat irrelevant to me. There's an So, and the other thing I've been doing, let me show you. So look, we'll start with looking at the Bitcoin data. So the other thing I've been doing is looking at CoinGlass. So CoinGlass, this is not CoinGlass. CoinGlass has released some new data and a new sort of charting kind of thing. I mean, I won't use it for charting, so I'll still stick with TradingView, but it's added in just more functionality. So the liquidations data you can do yourself. You can look at net longs and shorts. So it's kind of interesting. It's done that, and at the moment it's not paid. So I'm wondering if I can use it to replace the things I am paying for, because while I don't mind paying if the data is really valuable, it's difficult when I'm paying, when they start charging a lot, and or when they stop working. So this, for example, TradingLite, I use this to look at where the walls are on Bitcoin. It's very valuable, but it broke in, I don't know, April or May. And it took about 3 months to get back to sort of full force. And they haven't shown any sign of giving us a refund or anything like that. Now, I don't think I pay much for this. I can't really remember. I think it might be 15 euros a month or something like that. So it's not horrendous, but still, you know, if I am paying, I want what I'm paying for. And I'm only paying for the sort of the middle package, not the bells and whistles one, because I only want to just look at where the key walls are. So this is what I normally look at. So you can see we've got a wall here at 120k on Binance, and it's 120 there, and also 119 on Coinbase, and then below 111, 110. So yeah, Coinbase is stacking one before in between the Binance walls. So I use this for that, and then I also tend to have a quick look at this one, which hopefully will load. This is just Bitfinex and Bitstamp, so it doesn't matter too much if this doesn't load. But yeah, so then what we've got now on CoinGlass, so this data is now all free. So if you want to go and look at walls, you can see it's basically got the same. But what I do need to do is kind of compare the numbers and see which one I rely on, because I have realized through looking at some of the data, which I'll get to in a minute, that, you know, there's some of the calculated data is a lot more dodgy. But that doesn't mean what I have been using is the most accurate either. Maybe CoinGlass is more accurate. I also don't like, I prefer the interface of TradingLite. So I need to kind of pay off between the data I'm getting and how much I'm paying for it. Like I say, TradingLite is quite cheap, so I don't mind that much. So yeah, you can see we've got the walls showing up here, 111K, 110K on Coinbase, and similar on Binance. So yeah, that's interesting. This also got these circles which show you the large orders, which is kind of a nice addition. So it does have this data thing that goes over the entire chart when I move around, which makes it quite difficult, but you can see the circles there anyway. So there's that. Then on the liquidation side, obviously, you know, we normally look at this, and there's nothing wrong with this, but you do have to select, you know, if you want to look at Binance, I only look at Binance and Bybit really here. But if you want to look at any more exchanges, then you have to select them individually. You also have to select your time frame individually. And even then, to be fair, I haven't looked into this in detail to kind of figure out the value of the time frame and which one is more valuable. Like, I tend to stick with the lower time frames because I think liquidations tend to be more important. And I'm using this more for confluence with zones as well. So, you know, I can see there's a whole bunch of liquidations on the 3-day here at 114K. There's a whole bunch just under the current price at 115, and there's some more at 113. So basically every $1,000 is actually a lot on here at the moment on the long side, not surprisingly, and fewer on the short side because they got taken out yesterday, and a few more have gone in since people have been shorting today. But again, what we've got on the CoinGlass chart, and when I pulled this together from the CoinGlass, says CoinGlass legend.coinglass.com. If you want to have a look at this, I can put in Binance, Bybit, BitGet, and OKEx all on the same thing. I also have, you can see I've got liquidity heat map, so I've also got the walls on here, as well as the hyperliquid liquidation map and the CoinGlass liquidation heat map. So again, just considering the value. And the hyperliquid's an interesting one actually, because you can see, unfortunately, what this doesn't have is the sort of bells and whistles functionality that I'd like. I mean, I would like a white screen because I'm half blind and black screens for me just don't do it. I got lasered many years ago, and what it does is, while it makes your eyesight good again, you do lose contrast. So when, you know, I have this is not like on white, it's much bigger contrast than on black for me, so it's much easier to see. But what I do have on here, like I say, unfortunately, I haven't figured out yet how to expand. I figured it would be that button, but that button doesn't seem to do anything. How to expand one of these charts out, but I do have the liquidity heat map on here, as well as all the liquidations. And then you can see the hyperliquid liquidations here are the yellow bars to the right, and they don't really tally that well with what CoinGlass has, which is kind of interesting. But then I have been using CoinGlass to date, so I mean, I'm not sure whether, whereas hyperliquid liquidation that is. I'm trying to think. Wasn't it, well, hyperliquid is an exchange, isn't it? But there was maybe. Oh, I think I'm thinking of HioBlock. There was another website that historically, before we had this, everybody would look at for liquidations, and then that became paid, so I stopped using it. I think it was HioBlock, and back then I didn't use that much anyway. Yeah, so actually I'm getting mixed up. So hyperliquid liquidation maps, obviously there's liquidations in different places on hyperliquid, and for some reason it's got an indicator here rather than. So I need to look into that, and I haven't managed. I did have a quick look for whether there's any documentation for any of this, and didn't manage to find anything. But anyway, if you're interested in this data, at least now it's free, so you can look at where all these liquidations are and everything on there, or just stick with the original. This is free anyway, so you can stick with that. Then finally, the big one is, so you've seen me, I finally realized this, I can make this, this one. You've seen me use this one, Coinalyze, for a while, where I show the CBD, aggregated CBD for spot, and then aggregated CBDs for futures, and then OI And CoinGlass now has that. So again, it would just be one less website to have open, although I have those tabs open anyway. But basically, CoinGlass, the new data, has all the same things. For some reason, it's not loading the aggregated OI for the coin margin, but it did load that yesterday, so I'm not sure if that's just because my computer's being a bit dodgy at the moment. The only thing, so like I say, I have to compare the data. So the only thing that's kind of been, I can see is a big issue at the moment is if you look at the CVD for, this is the Coinbase spot, you can see that we've had this run up and we have had a lot of buying going in up here. But the price has been going sideways, so there is some divergence on that. But you can see this line anyway. And then when I compare that to the Coinalyze, we have the same line, but when I zoom out on this, you can see that line is basically just dropping. So when it's zoomed in, it looks very similar. And this is a 15-minute chart. But in fact, now it's dropping since we've hit the high. So it's got a significant divergence down since we've hit the high, whereas this is going up. So yeah, so why those are different, I don't know. Again, what the value is, I'm not sure, because in fact I don't use that line that much. I have Coinbase set on here just so I can see if there's Coinbase buying going on when there's aggregated spot selling from the aggregated exchanges, whether there's selling going on there or whether Coinbase is pushing the price up. Yeah, so like I said, there's some flaws in the data there, or potential flaws on either side. It's not necessarily CoinGlass, not necessarily Coinalyze, and maybe it's something in the calculation. Unfortunately, there's nothing in the settings either. So if you go into the settings, it's got, only last n bars and for all, and both of them are set to the same thing. And then this does have, you can put conditions on this that you want to go higher than X price or whatever, orders larger than 10,000, for example, you can put in here. But this is not filtered, and nor is the other one. So. But either way, I don't really need to use this. The other one's fine and has been fine so far. The bigger thing is, so Exocharts. So you see me use Exocharts a lot, which obviously is probably going to struggle to load as well. And this is where I look at net longs and shorts. So it's one thing to see the AI up. Here we go. There's one thing to see the open interest going up, but then I want to know, is that, shorts pushing it up? And I think, again, these are calculated, but I haven't investigated in detail. It's been the best data useful. So, for example, just to show you how I use this, you can see here on this last run up yesterday, we had a lot of longs go in. So when we're looking for a reversal, a top end reversal, we would want to see people longing the top and then shorts getting liquidated. So we've got a lot of people going long yesterday. We didn't have so many longs in this last run up today, or as the end of yesterday, and we would have been nice to see more there, but we did have longs go in, like late longs. And in fact, overall, the longs have been really, really poor. And I've said this before, the whole run up, longs have just been on this corrective bounce that we're having at the moment, presuming it's corrective. But anyway, we did have some longs going at the top there, and then we also were having a lot of shorts go in. So zoom back in again. This was throughout the day yesterday. So it was in that sideways consolidation. We had a lot of shorts going. And again, if you see that happening, what you're kind of thinking is you want those shorts to be stopped out before the price is going to fall down. So therefore we have this last run which takes all those shorts out, and now we want to come down and take all those longs out. And we've already seen some longs have closed on this run anyway. But that's kind of why I like to look at that data. And then here we have CoinGlass basically has the same thing. So the challenge here is that they have two indicators. So you can see I've got net longs, net shorts, and then net longs new and net shorts new, whatever that means. And the problem is these don't really, I think the upper ones to some extent resemble what's on the Exocharts, but the bottom two don't. The other thing is these bottom two, you can see these on this, I've got Binance and Bybit selected. Both of these are the same. However, the legend is different. So I have no idea what's going on with that. So you can see here, for example, this net longs new is minus 24.29, and this one is minus 14.895. Yeah, the chart is the same. So I'm finding that quite confusing. And again, you know, that it's set to use all data, so I don't understand why that is. Anyway, so yeah, I need to investigate all these a bit more. But basically, we know what we're saying is, I think now just to kind of analyze what we've seen on Bitcoin, we had, better to look at this. To look now, all my different tabs now, I have to figure it out. I haven't really seen anything significant on the data, but to be fair, I haven't looked at it in a massive amount of detail. Like I say, we saw those longs go in, we saw the shorts get stopped out, which is what we want for reversal, so that's great. But then structurally, we still need to see breaks of demand and things like that. So spot is kind of supporting. Spot was supporting the up move on the lower time frames, but in the bigger picture, again, as I've said, if you zoom out, like this, the CVD is just dropping. Aggregated CVD has just been dropping the entire time the price has been at these levels. You know, before the bounce. So we haven't had what you know, people particularly buying back in now to push this price back up. And similarly, so we did have some ETF buying yesterday, but not loads. So at least we don't have selling, but yesterday we did have some buying coming in again, as usual, led by BlackRock. And similarly on Ether, we had a lot of buying coming in yesterday, and that's pretty much, well, there's been higher previously, but that's sort of probably to the average end of the buying that we're typically getting on Ether over the last few weeks. So again, that's not surprising that Ether's pushed up from here. Now, anyway, I'm getting a bit of an error on the stream, so I'm going to shut this window down. Let me just think, is there anything else I wanted to say on here first? Not really, yeah, so the short version on this is just, is this a correction? And at the moment, yes, it's looking like a correction. We do have an ETF supporting buy, which is good, and we need to see the retest. Once I get to the chart, I can show you that. But yeah, I'm going to shut this down in the hope that my stream is more happy about. Wow, I can't even shut it. Surely not. I can shut it. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so in the hope that my stream comes back to not having an error. For some reason, OBS has suddenly decided to use 40% of my CPU when normally I think it's like 15%. They have just on an update, so I need to figure out what's happened there and if there's something that's kind of wrecked. And see if everybody else is thinking the same thing. Anyway, we don't want to have a 10-hour-long stream. We're already 20 minutes in, so that was a very, very long intro. So I'll just do really quick updates on Bitcoin and Ether because I talked about all this in the last stream. So we had this hit, you know, I had these entries in that I talked about previously. So we talked about getting a rejection off this red box. I did add another possible retest because I thought maybe we'd come out and take out that wick. So on the lower time frame, I did have an alert for here, and I had the same alert for here. And this alert went off, but the wick didn't take out that high, and then this alert went off, and again, the wick didn't take out the high, and then when it did, eventually it just went straight through it, because obviously. Then obviously I talked about this being this weekly supply that we had up here, and that would be where my next alert was. I was concerned, obviously, about these trendline stops. A lot of people think we were going to go for those. However, when I looked back, like if we look back to, one thing I do say, so is if, I'm not saying it is, but if price is ready to drop, then it will not go back and take out the stops. And we see that back here, and the structure, the preceding structure is a little bit different here. But you can see again, we had trendline stops here, and I remember around this time people were saying, oh, this bounce is going to go back and take out all those stops, and it didn't. So that's what's been in my head now, and this didn't have a weekly supply or anything, but so however, what this did do, I mean, that first bounce did come and take out some local stops, I think from the previous weekend. It was a Friday, the high there. So it didn't reject immediately off whatever supply was in here on whatever time frame. It did come back higher, but it didn't take out the bigger stops. And that's not as many stops as up here. Obviously, we have a lot more here. But it's just something to be conscious of, that if we do have a lot of stops above, if people are waiting to get in, and they're also waiting to get, there's people who got trapped up here who longed for breakouts and they want to get out break even, so they just remain trapped if price just drops. So I stuck with that as a possible entry. I also said today, there was a possibility we go up to this 5 day. So this alert was for 1 week, 2 day and 5 day supply inside there. And for this, I got lucky and that it's just rejected straight off there. Something also to be conscious of, I just go back onto the linear chart, is that we are at the lows here holding this kind of bigger picture trend line. Back from April. And that last up move. So for what it's worth, the people who trade trend lines. But yeah, so there's not a great deal more to add on this. I've added a new alert, and I'm wary of this, so I have put in the alert that I'm wary because of the weekly supply. But on the off chance we get a bounce, we do have a daily demand in here. We've got a 12-hour, I think, or 8-hour sitting on top of it. I'm being slightly more conservative because this is there's a 4-hour demand in here, and it's also, I think, the 61 fib of the whole up move. So I'm being slightly more conservative. But again, be conscious, if we go back to this start of the year, that similar here, if this is the end and it's a bearish retest, then these zones don't hold. We eventually run straight through them because it's coming off a higher time frame supply and the reversal is in play. Excuse me. Yeah, one of my streams has gone back to normal. That's good. Unfortunately, not my vertical one. Okay, so yeah, while I've alerted here, be conscious of that. The other thing, and then also below, so I've talked about the sort of all the different levels we've gotten, and I hate it when it's like this. Like, to me, this looks ridiculous. It could bounce here, it could bounce here. In fact, there's another one in there that I think I haven't got on this chart. There's one here, there's one here. This is the big one that I'm most interested in if we make it all the way back down there, the 3-month level. But even this is a giant zone, and there's various zones inside it that it could bounce. And I hate this type of PA when it's just chopping, consolidating, because it can, it could bounce. So before, we could find this and they could be fine, all my crosses, like maybe we're just going to bounce on every single level all the way down. Or we throw giant candles straight through everything because nobody else knows where to buy either. So that's always the risk, that again, if this is the overall top, this could just fall off a cliff through everything if it wants to. But, typically here we have had bounces on the way down, so I'm kind of going to stick with that in the hope that we do. So the first alert, but yeah, like I say, so there's rationale behind all of these from various reasons, for various different reasons. So the first one and the most aggressive one, I'm not sure why I have two. No, that must have pulled. Unfortunately, you can pull alerts around the charts a bit easily. You can just drag them like you used to have to confirm when you drag the chart around, but not anymore. So I also dragged that down. So I think I had that. Yeah, that's the alert for up there. Anyway, digress. So here is the first kind of significant demand. We've got a 5-day demand in here. And then it's sitting on a 2-week. So I've alerted the top just to see the reaction if it gets to that area. There are a couple of lows here, and this is the July month open. And I did comment that we had, so from the start of July, from basically day 1, in fact, we just went up. We hit the high on mid-July, and then we've kind of just been sideways since then. But we had a whole month of up and then a strong monthly close. And then we fell on the 1st of August. So then I was just joking that maybe we'd have a whole down move on the for the August candle. But anyway, this is the quarterly open there. So again, that was another area of interest, taking out some of the stops in here. Then similarly, if we retrace this whole impulse. But yeah, like I said, there's too many zones below for now, but that's what I'll be watching if we get that down there. From the bullish perspective, it's just a question of if this is going to hold and try and break the weekly supply. So local longs, you can look in here, and we just need to see if there's going to be a bit more consolidation through here. So we're going to be able to push up higher. From a confidence perspective, like Korea is obviously much more bullish. Korea is still holding this range, hasn't broken. So whereas the US dollar pair broke the range and is now basically trying to fail a retest of the range, Korea has held. So I'm not sure what that tells me, but I'm interested again to see if Asia can push this. I do think this is looking kind of bear flag. Like, that's just my issue with this on the bull side. Similarly, on US dollar dominance, excuse me, we've come back down, we've come to the 61 fib with this last up move. We came off 3 weekly supply up here, come back down, and we're now just testing, are we going to make a higher low here? Is this a reversal move, or is it a bearish retest? So you can see that we've got, one, 2, 3, 4, 5, bearish retest, another drop. Is this a bearish retest for another drop? Which could, I have always said I wanted it to get all the way back down there. Or is this, now we've come back to the start of this, is this the point we make a higher low and we're going for that higher high? So it's still in a fairly critical time, it's in a large descending triangle. Some of those off again. It's in this very large descending triangle. But I know Borkowski says actually descending triangles, while there it's known to be a bearish pattern, they more commonly break up than they do down. So that was kind of an interesting observation. And he sort of back tested all the data on that. But yeah, you can see we're in a very critical point anyway. We've got a higher, we had wicks to take out this low, and now we've got the possibility this is a retest and make a higher low. However, it's not a strong demand because this demand didn't break this supply. So again, the bigger picture is still downtrend, and that's why this is potentially downtrend into there. But then also we don't get bearish at support, is now clearly a support. And in the very much bigger picture, this is a 6-month demand. So this very much could still be that type of price action. Wouldn't be good for Bitcoin at all. Anyway, yeah, there's not much news to report there. So like I say, Bitcoin's just retesting. The summary is, so that's the main chart. So the summary on this is that Bitcoin is retesting weekly supply, where we were looking for the possibility of a short, which is going to give it a nice start. It has new daily demand below. I've alerted the 4-hour inside that at the 61 fib, but be conscious that if this is weekly supply, it could just run through everything. Then below, as you know, we've got heaps of different arguments for different zones that we could get a bounce on. And I may try and refine these a bit more, but I've alerted the 5-day or 4-day demand at the top there. 4-day demand just above this 2-week as the most aggressive kind of entry, and that's where you'd be looking for a bounce or a wick into this larger zone. I just need to see what happens when we get there. So that's really all we need to say on Bitcoin for now. Ether has just been a little bit more awkward. So Ether is awkward because it did create a 3-day supply, as you can see here. Not the best one. It's not clean, and thus it's come straight back through it. But again, I can't long into 3-day supply. So from my previous stream that I said I was looking, for longs in here. I did, and I think I did the update in the Telegram channel where I said, okay, we're going to if we hit this 12-hour demand, this is what I want, but there's a chance we could get a wick through because it's got a few stacked, and you've got a couple of stacked demands like this. It can wick deeper inside. So I had set another low on the lower time frames to manage to catch the low on that, although it could even come below this the 4-hour entirely. But that was pretty nice for the long entry, and that gave really nice confluence as well with the Korean pair. Slide this clearer, because the Korean pair on this last push then also came down. It hadn't hit the 8-hour demand yet, and it came down into there. Then I was saying I was potentially looking for shorts when we came back into this consolidation up here. And then similar to Bitcoin, I had the alert that went and it front run me slightly, and then when it came back, it just went straight through it. And then obviously now I was taking out the high. I did also look lower time frame for a couple of short entries in here where there's a couple of hourly untested demands in there. Sorry, supplies. So I did consider those as possible shorts, but obviously it's run through those and now taken a wick higher. The thing on this that I had commented on previously that I wasn't overly comfortable with was the Ether BTC pair. So this had stopped at a daily supply here. So I've now deleted it because it's run through it, but this had stopped at a daily supply, but I had always said I wanted it in this circle, at least at this, it's a 2-week level, it's just hit. It's a 3-week, just a little bit higher. And then there's a monthly, this big brown zone up here. So I said I really would like this up in this area before looking for the possibility of shorts on the US dollar pair. So we are now, like I say, we're just a touch off that area. I think the wick has just tapped into the 2-week supply, but yeah, again, just be conscious now we are coming into at least decent, we've had like low time frame daily 2-day supply throughout here. So it's not overly surprising. We did get a decent correction here, but that we've run up higher, but now we are coming into a more critical area, where, I had a month at least of people buying because they were buying retest of this consolidation over here. So this is potentially a bearish retest and could potentially reject from here. And it would be nice, like at a minimum, it would be nice to get something like this, where we run down. It's now made a new monthly demand. So maybe we run back down into that monthly demand from somewhere in this area. But it's an area I do think you should be wary of on Ether. And like it means be wary on the US dollar pair as well. Because if this wants to come down, then that means the US dollar pair. It's unlikely that the US dollar, the Ether US dollar and BTC US dollar will go up. I suppose it's possible that BTC goes up more than Ether. That is possible. But given the bullishness on Ether recently, I don't know. I feel more inclined to say they're going to come down. I think it's unusual for this to go up while the market's going up. Sorry, what? Yeah, does that make sense? I don't know. Sorry, I'm very tired today as well. Anyway, yeah, just be conscious that it's coming into supply, and that's not really an area that I want to look for longs on Ether. And I've said that for ages anyway. It may not have made a lower high in here, but we are overarchingly still in 3-month supply, monthly and 3-month on Ether Korea, although again I've hidden the colors because it's my charts are too busy. We are in major supply, and so even if we could push up and take out all these wicks that we've left behind from previously up into this 3-day zone. So that is where my next alert is. But yeah, this is not particularly an area that I want to look for, macro longs to hold to 10K. Maybe I'm wrong. In the bigger picture, and we still have this dubious downward sloping trend line. So really you want to see a bigger move out and then a bigger retest, and a move that's actually going to break the high. I had a pink line at 6K, but probably it was a fib or something from back in the past. But yeah, so this is not, but as you can see, we've rejected here. We like to reject in this area, even that first wick there, price tends to reject in the 4K area. And, once it's hit multiple times, then yes, it's more likely to break out, but you're taking longs in a very, very high risk area. So anyway, having said that, I have put a long entry in, or like alert. So it has made a new daily demand here. If we can stay up for the rest of this is currently, like I said, flipped the 3-day supply back to demand by that close above there. It will potentially be a 5-day demand at the end of the day if it can hold for long enough. So it's okay. Be conscious of what you're doing and that you are potentially taking longs in a bigger supply, but you can potentially look for longs if this confirms into a 5-day or for retesting in this area. Now, so I have alerted here on this 4-hour, but I have also commented that it does have a bunch of 4-hour demands below, and I don't like this stacking, so that's a little bit choppy for me. But again, I've just alerted the top one, but it could wick through. This is just more aggressive potential long entry, but something to watch if it gets back there. We still do have a lot of CME gaps. So we did, while price came down here at the weekend to where we did have a previous CME gap, CME wasn't open. So we do still have a CME gap there, and then various lower for what they're worth. And where CME is at the moment, again, got how many hours? 3 hours at least remaining. But this is potentially going to create a weekly demand. Again, I think it created a 5-day and a 3-day. Just hide that for the moment. by closing above this level and above that level. I've got the 5-day marked in there, but this is potentially going to be a weekly demand that can close above here. It's not going to be a very strong one, but also has very clear equal highs here. So it's looking pretty likely it's going to go for the equal highs at the moment, hence my more aggressive long entry. But yeah, if we get up here before going back to test that area that I talked about before testing this demand, then just be more wary. So yeah, you can see we have the two CME gaps. This one we did close. I think I just left it there for illustration. And then this is the lower one where the US dollar crypto exchanges dipped down into here at the weekend, but the CME pair didn't. So yeah, it just depends. If price can hold over the weekend and come back and test for that long entry over the weekend, then it might be okay. But be very wary of taking that if we go up higher first and take out these highs, because if that has a stronger reaction, that's likely to go straight back through. And then yeah, finally, I guess Korea is, so this is just to show what happened at the weekend. So this was the first bounce where the US dollar pair had hit the 8-hour demand. And then Korea hadn't quite, and that's why I said in the Telegram channel I'd like Korea a little bit lower. And then we got the second push, which then took the US dollar pair down to swing fail the 8-hour, and then we got the move up. So that's why it's good to look at Korea and try and judge the two against each other. I wanted to take out these two lows into this untested demand, and it's much cleaner. Korea can be much cleaner. I mean, you do have to be conscious, like even if it is cleaner, it doesn't necessarily mean it means it's the confluence with trading the US dollar pair, because you don't want to trade an 8-hour demand on Korea when the US dollar pair is going to stop hunt it, because that will still stop you out. Anyway, yeah, so if we fail to hold up here, this consolidation, we are kind of making this broadening wedge, not dissimilar to what we were doing here. I've talked before again about the possibility of bounces lower. So there are CME gaps. Like, I don't love this area, and this was the 61 pip, but may not be anymore. We've gone a little bit higher. But this is confluent with the lows and the support that were from over to the left. So I think it's worth watching that level. So I have an alert for there. Then we have this monthly demand below. So those are the kind of two main areas that I'll be looking for longs if we are going to get a bigger drop on this. But again, similar to Bitcoin, with all the sort of chop going up, it makes it hard. If it's very aggressive, then potentially, if we get a fall, well, if it's very aggressive, then potentially we just get a bounce from in here or up here. But if we do get a fall and it's still aggressive and it's just a clean out of longs, then it could bounce from there. If it's weakened off, and if it's, really thinking that this is the final time it's going to try this resistance, then again, we could be back into the more bearish scenario like Bitcoin, where we come up in here, get a bounce, and then we're going back down, because we do still have an untested 3-month at the low, back all the way back down here, that we just kind of slightly front run. Crypto loves to do. So yeah, anyway, I guess the summary for Ether. So summary for Ether, just starting on the BTC pair, that this wasn't in an ideal place for looking for shorts on any sort of a reversal previously, but now is approaching the area that we were interested in. It's hit a 2-week level. There's a 3-week level and a monthly level slightly higher. It's potentially going to make weekly demand, so we just need to see the reaction here and if we get a retest. So that's the kind of bear scenario, that if this rejects here, then we could see a bigger drop on the US dollar pair. But this still has some scope, like it doesn't have to reject immediately it hits this level. It could still mess around in here for a while. Then on the US dollar pair, obviously we've broken out potentially of the range that we've had for the last week or so, or longer, a couple of weeks. We're looking for whether this, it's made already flipped. It had 3-day supply. We're looking for it to see if it flips to 3-day demand, or sorry, it has flipped to 3-day demand. But we're looking to see if it's going to make 5-day demand today, if CME is going to make a weekly today, and or if this makes a weekly demand by the end of the week, if it can move up over the weekend. I've got long entry more aggressively on that 4-hour demand just inside the consolidation, and then long entries tentatively here. and back in monthly demand down here if we get that low. On the short side, if this is starting to look more bullish, and if it breaks out, then we just need to reconsider. If we're going to break through here, then we look for that retest entry later. For now, we've got a 3-day untested supply up here, which would mean taking out all these wicks that we've left behind for over the last few years. And then obviously possibly the all-time high is going to be a sort of resistant area. But for now, my next alert would be at that 3-day supply at 4,200. And then we'll see what the weekly close is like, and whether we can hold this until then. So that's really the summary on Ether. I'm going for time, 40 minutes. I didn't want to get into a massive amount of detail on everything else, mainly because my throat's hurting a bit. But I was wanting to do this stream a little bit for me as well, because I haven't had a look through all the market cap charts for a couple of days, or since we've kind of done this bounce. So we had US dollar dominance, as we know, is on that 61 fib. And USDC was a little bit weaker, but it had, so this had 3-day demand, but it came down in here a little earlier than the US dollar tether dominance. Stablecoin dominance has space, which is kind of interesting, and I haven't used this as one of the new pairs that were given by TradingView. Unfortunately, they had history before, but for whatever bizarre reason, they've deleted it all. However, I still have all my boxes, so now I have an empty chart with lots of supply and demand zones on it, but no actual price. But at least I have the supply because it makes it significantly more useful, but it'd be kind of nice to see the price. But from what I understand, there is no intention for them to bring it back at the moment. But anyway, yeah, so all of these are coming off a supply and at the point that they could give a bounce and give another up move. Total, not dissimilar to Bitcoin, except it's in 3-day supply rather than weekly, has made a new daily demand. So looking to see if we're going to get a rejection here, then what the reaction is, what the reaction is if we get back into this daily zone. Are we going to continue? Is that going to be enough strength to kind of break out and make a new high? Total 2 obviously has moved a little bit higher because of Ether, but interestingly hasn't actually broken the high, so it's still in, what's that, 4 or 5 day supply. So I think that's a 5 day as well as a 4 day actually, so it's in a 5-day supply but could flip it. So this could be interesting, something else to watch, and same with Ether. So the close today is going to be quite interesting as to what the bias is. Like in the way we are right now, even if Ether closes strong and closes a 5-day demand, then they're going to be weak demand. So it's not necessarily something I'm just going to blindly think I'm bullish and long. I'm still aware that we are in major resistance. But it does mean I would rather wait for some more significant supplier demand to flip back to supply before I look for shorts. But it's up to you if you want a long based on these types of structures once we're up here. Total 3, not dissimilar, yeah, and this is not surprising because we've had the majors have been stronger. The alts have been interesting. There's been a kind of mixture of alts. I'm still seeing random alts popping. The majors doing what you expect, similar to Bitcoin and Ether. They're just doing this retracement. They were obviously a lot weaker on the drop, or they dropped a lot further. And some into major demands though. So we'll look at those in a minute. Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me this is stronger. And again, this might flip this 5-day. There's a 4-day supply and a 5-day supply in there, and it could flip that 5-day to demand. And then we'll see. But I've said this a while ago. I've left this line in here. I've said it's exactly the same as Ether. Like, I have no interest in longing. If I was trading this chart in this kind of scenario, I would rather wait for it to break up and retest and then move. And that's essentially what this line was. Because, yeah, this potentially is still, whether or not it's a bearish retest. So we're clearly not coming up with the strength here that we're like the strength now that we had there. We haven't just broken straight through supply. We're stopping. So the fact we're stopping and we're making supply then makes me feel like either we're going to reverse or we at least need a bit more consolidation before we break out. Something like that. I'm not sure. But for now, we just need to see. Again, like I say, it's just not the time I want to be looking for longs. Others pretty much exactly the same. So we've talked about this many times. What we were looking for, this is my kind of more aggressive bearish scenario that's drawn in there, but we had daily demand here that we looked at and circle there because I said we did talk about that. So we're looking for the initial bounce in that daily demand, which is what's happened here. A little bit smaller. And failing that, we wanted the bounce below in this weekly zone. And then I was just hypothesizing, we'd need to see the strength of that bounce here because, if this is bullish and you want to be bullish, then, we're going to get a bounce and we're going to keep going. Or if this is bearish, then we could just get a little bit of consolidation like that and then fall off a cliff. And that was what that drawing was. Alternatively, we're just very bearish. It's just going to fall straight back through. And as you know, I'm not particularly bullish on this. I was conscious that, again, similar to Ether BTC, it can go higher in the zone. This is not necessarily the high. So are we in this scenario? We're just going to retest and start drifting back down. And this is what's happening here. And that would be actually pretty good if it does do that, because if it's a very slow move down like this, then it's more likely to break out upwards later. But if you have a faster move down, a bigger drop, similar to like that, then it's more likely to get the momentum and continue. But we're still in an indecisive type of situation right now. Also in 5-day, 4-day supply. So again, I don't want to be looking for longs on alts here. So all of this so far is basically just saying we don't really long anything right now. Like if you took longs on these bounces at below, even on the retest, if you want to take aggressive longs on these new daily demands that are made. So, when this comes back and tests that daily, when we get US dollar dominance testing the daily supply, sure, take longs if you want to take longs on the stronger alts. But while we're here, don't long anything really, unless you're scalping. Or unless you pick something crazy like MYX, which is just one of the ones that's taken off and is just holding every demand. Total DeFi, if you want to long anything, I would also stick with DeFi. So this is one of the stronger, this is much stronger than all the other, even Total, still in supply like everything else. But it is one of the stronger charts. It was weaker before. I actually liked this for a head and shoulders even more than others to some extent, and we are still in supply, so it's a challenging one. However, it has held a lot higher, so you can see the bounce here hasn't come down to that daily, so the daily zone, it's lower on this, whereas if you look at others, it came all the way back down to that daily zone from the 12th of July. Total DeFi hasn't got anywhere near that and has held much higher. And I think I've said before, with the difficulty I always have on this is whether I interpret this as it's stronger or whether I interpret it as, given the whole market does generally do the same thing, that means this has significantly further to fall if things do start to fall. But I think what we're more likely to see on this potentially is if we get the fall, this maybe is more likely to hold here. It's made a monthly demand for an up, but at the same time, we might get this still falling a lot lower, just because of the structurally. So it's possible that total DeFi does hold something higher whilst others goes lower. And then finally, total E100, again, probably similar to others, but it has fallen. So this has showing the weakness of the smaller alts. This has fallen through the daily demand of the 12th of July. So we can see total DeFi being stronger, others bouncing on this level, and total E100 dropping lower, not quite into this weekly zone. And overall, we've said this, I've again said this before, this diagonal you've got at the top here. So I was looking on the whole market, whether on these market cap charts, whether they were going to make a channel up like this, or whether they were potentially going to make a bear flag. And so this one has just come over the top of that channel line that I had there. But this has been significantly weaker than everything else, again, not surprisingly. And what we're really saying is that we're not getting new capital in pushing smaller shitcoins. We are seeing that capital is rotating among the bigger coins, and it's rotating into some alts at a time. And I did a whole thing on this in my last stream about how to select alts and how I'm selecting alts at the moment off my 700 odd list. I sort it every day. I chart the top 10.15, the top bottom 10.15, and I put in when something's going to hit supply, when something's going to hit demand, and I'm basically pretty much trading them back the way they came, because alts are just bouncing around. And what we're finding for the most part, with the exception of things like MYX, which are being crazy, is that they're breaking out, then the money comes out and it rotates into something else, and then that coin that pumped then does a full retracement. And there's very few that are continuing. We did get really nice longs on TROLLSOL, but it's extremely hard to find the ones that are going to break out. And even I can boast about TROLLSOL, but there's been a handful that I've talked about. And a lot of the others haven't really done much, or have gone sideways, or even died. So it's very hard to actually pick one and to be on top of, if you really want to get the big move. So I always continue to say, just trade things up and down as and when zones are hit. So that's the other market cap charts. Then on the dominance charts, okay, we're getting a bit more of a dive in BTC dominance today. So I have to rechart that. So we've had a lot of discussion about this in the group. This did hit 6 month supply, but it did hit it back in February, a long time ago, and it pushed up again, and then pushed up again, and now has finally had a significant drop off it. It broke through a local week monthly demand and has flipped that to supply. So again, in an ideal world, if I was trading this, I'd want to retest into there before looking for that drop. We're now back on this 2 month demand, but essentially we're still following up. So while we've had a decent drop on this, coinciding with the drop we had on Bitcoin last week, we did have a similar thing that happened in November last year. No, that's not working properly. So November last year we had that. Everybody was like, this is the blow off top before the start of alt season, but then Bitcoin just picked up again. So it's, what are we going to do here? And people are saying exactly the same now, but we're still very much have the potential to be at the same point. We are coming off 6 month supply, so it does have that in its favor. As you know, I'm not a particular proponent of alt season, and it's not what I'm seeing. So even if there are people who just blindly say this is the same, and with the people like me who say this isn't the same, they just sort of diss us. And that's fine, maybe they're right. I'm always on the fence about these things, but for me, just logically, I don't expect it to be the same. Bitcoin is going up for different reasons to when it went up previously, and I stand by the fact that I don't think the ETFs and people who are buying BlackRock Bitcoin ETF are going to rotate into shitcoins. So I just don't think it's the same scenario. Whether we, the retail traders, are enough to push that rotation, and the TikTok videos that tell you to buy shitcoins and all that sort of stuff, whether that's enough to push the rotation once Bitcoin settles down, even if the ETFs stay out of it and they just let Bitcoin go sideways for 6 months, I'm not sure. The other thing is, do we have too many shitcoins? I have 700 on my list now. I remember flipping from, I charted all the spot cryptos back in 2017, 2018, and there became too many. So I went, right, I'm just only going to chart the ones on futures. But then obviously progressively more and more have come on futures. And if you trade on like MEPC, you'll know how many they release day in, day out, which makes it extremely hard to keep on top of all of them. And that's why I've kind of limited myself to just doing the top 10, bottom 15, top 10, 15, bottom 10, 15, and the key ones that people ask me for, like SUI. I always get asked for. FARTCOIN, one of my other groups, is super into, so I tend to trade that a lot. Chart that a lot. Yeah, anyway, so we'll see what happens on this. The reason this is dropping anyway is because it's obviously rotating into Ether. So Ether, this is very similar, the Ether dominance chart, very similar to Ether BTC. We're coming up into 2-3 week supply, monthly supply a little bit higher. So again, it's kind of in an area that I'm going to start that's got the potential for kind of a blow off top. So we need to do that. Having said that, while these are major zones, we do have this, it's not like they're very clean consolidations before a drop-off. And whether that matters so much on dominance, I'm not sure, but it's not a very clean zone when you look at it on the low time frames. But, and dominance it's not really the same charting dominance as it is charting a normal price chart. It's poor. I saw somebody make the comment earlier that oh, that's why Ether's gone up, because Ether dominance is going up. And I'm like, no, this chart is calculated from the Ether price. You can't say this is going, like Ether is not going up because this is going up. This is going up because Ether is going up. Yeah, it's just quite a bizarre comment. And maybe it was a slip of the tongue of the person involved. I won't mention them, but for me, it's just sounded a bit stupid. Anyway. So yeah, Ether dominance is going up and BTC dominance is falling. We've got a little bit of a rise on others dominance, but so again, this is just an indecisive, very tight spot, and it'd be nice to just see it break out either way, or just fall into here and then finally give us all season. I don't know, but we hit 3 week supply, we had weekly demand, we bounced off 3 week supply, we come back into weekly demand. We now have 5-day supply. Maybe if we get a stronger close in here, maybe we are going to see that coming off here. But it's not particularly at a point that I want to, keep going off the chart, that I want to judge it right now. It's still very much in a sideways, so it's just trading those little moves on alts is all this is just telling me. DeFi, as I've said, is much stronger. And we talked about this back when it hit this 2 weekly demand over here, and it did come back down, unfortunately more aggressively than I expected, but it has made a monthly demand. So it would be very nice if this tested down into here at the same time as others dominance tested into this major zone below here. Whether we get what we wish for, I don't know. But it's had a good bounce, it's holding 5-day demand in there. It's got a 2-month supply, a little bit higher. So this has some space. If it was to go to the next significant supply, it's got a little bit of space even just to the level, and then obviously there's the zone. If it wants to go higher in the zone, it has a lot of scope. And then higher again, we've got a 6-month level inside. So this is similar to actually a lot of the structure we're seeing on alts, which is making it quite difficult to know where to look for shorts, as to whether we're going to get a retrace of this whole move and that we're going to be shorting back up there, or we've got little zones throughout. It's like, do we short here? Do we short here? There's a monthly level, there's a 6-monthly level, there's a 3-week supply. Excuse me. So anyway, this is sort of supporting my thesis on DeFi being stronger. I then suggest if you really want to get into alts, DeFi is probably the way to go. And we did actually I did make a new watch list, but I've actually never charted them, I think, of can't remember what I called it. Find it. Alts market cap chart. So see all these. So these are worth, I think, given what we see on total DeFi, and this is dominance rather than, I don't know, I can't remember if these actually had dominance or whether they're just the market caps. Let me see. Let's give us dominance as well. No, it's just giving us the market cap. But you've got AI, BNB chain, DePIN, Ethereum exchanges, layer 1. So all the different kind of groups of alts. Again, the real annoyance on this is the removal of all the history. Because these were really quite useful before, and they've become significantly less useful now they've removed the history. Because what you could see is they were all broadly looking like total 2, but just total on totals. So they've gone up and they've retested, but some were more like BNB like this and pushing up. Others had come back deeper. So it would have been quite nice to be able to see which were the strong ones and which ones breaking out. So that's a bit unfortunate, actually. I won't go on too much about that because it was way less helpful than I thought it was going to be. And then, finally, total E100 dominance, just showing that weakness. So it does have weekly demand, but it's come very, very deep inside that. Did I just show that? I don't know if I'm going crazy. No, I did total DeFi dominance. But again, so you can see the weakness. You can see there's, DeFi is a little bit stronger. Others isn't great. Total 3 is a bit stronger. So we're seeing the bigger majors and DeFi being stronger, but other alts, most of the alts and all the shitcoin alts on the total, excluding the top 100, are much weaker as a group with random pumps, and then the pumps are retracing. So this all supports kind of things I've said before anyway. Last thing I might have a quick look at here is GBTC, where are we up to? Like an hour now. So Grayscale, I just want to see, because I haven't looked at Grayscale. So Grayscale's having a bit of a test of its a previous all-time high there. And actually has a bit of space into 3-day supply. Kind of, yeah, I mean, these charts are pretty horrible to be super accurate on. But, you know, again, supports everything I've said, really. You know, I don't want to be longing now when we're coming into supply. I want to long the lows, short the highs, you know, don't FOMO into anything. But I think, like, really the summary of everything we've looked at. I'm just going to put this back to my US dollar chart. So the real summary of all the market cap and dominance charts that we're seeing is that everything's in very, very tight ranges. We've got most of the market cap charts are at supply, and they're very high risk to look for any longs at the moment. That doesn't mean you should short blindly, because we're not saying, most things are just testing structures at the moment. So we're seeing that first test. If you start to see rejections that come in, then start to look for your bigger short trades. If we break the current consolidations, so the total, for example, we see this break, then we can look for retests. But we're running in very tight ranges, and it's hard to know now. Are we just going to have, you know, it's unlikely we're going to break out on this. Like, normally we'll have some sort of a bigger consolidation once we've had that first drop. So I am expecting more than likely to have a bigger consolidation here. Hopefully it will be not an aggressive one, and it's a consolidation, and therefore we're going to have another up move. If we get sort of, as we start to get sharp moves down like back here, then maybe we'd reconsider and think, okay, this is now turning into a bigger sell-off. Yeah, so that's it really. Majors, so yeah, do some alts, and I'm not going to go through all the detail of the majors. I just want to show just some updates, because we talked about these a lot in the last, I did major streams on this, actually. These lines on there. Litecoin. Two parallel channels for some reason. Anyway, so what we had last weekend, we had really nice confluence on the majors. The only ones, I think it was only Lincoln Near that didn't get to where I wanted them to. So Litecoin, I'd had an aggressive, so like, correct that a bit. So I had a couple, so TRX and Litecoin actually showing on this are the two of the old majors, like they front run, but they were close enough to the zones to make me kind of go, okay, they're confluent enough for the whole market to bounce. So what I had put in the Telegram channel on Saturday, I think, was that, maybe Sunday, when was that? That was Saturday, yeah, that we were kind of at a point that you can start looking for longs. Because I had TRX was very close to this 5-day demand, although it did slightly front run it. Litecoin, the alert did go for this 8-hour demand in here, but again, slightly front run the level. And BCH had hit 2-day demand that I wanted down there, and Ripple was in a zone, although it didn't get alerted. Similarly, on the new majors, we had BNB at a 12-hour demand, so that was a really nice long entry there. So these are all entries that I've talked about in previous streams, so if you follow my streams, you'll be able to get in some of these trades. I haven't alerted. There were, I think, 3 that have made new monthly demand, and I think it's ADA, DOGE, and SOL. Yeah, that's BNB. Hi, Mindfreak. So yeah, ADA, DOGE, and SOL, I think, had made monthly demand, so I'd commented that ADA and DOGE had hit them, but I hadn't actually alerted them at that time. And then similarly on SOL, so SOL, I had the monthly alert, a really nice move off there. Near was slightly front run off the level that I wanted. In fact, that was probably close enough to be okay, similar to TRX and Litecoin. Excuse me. And yeah, so, and Atom and Dot had hit weekly demand. So we had really nice confluence for that bounce at the weekend. So I hope you've got into some of those. And then now, and again, I've talked previously about all the short entries, so I'll go back to the original majors. So these are actually slightly different, but we can see on, so on Litecoin and Ripple were the same structure, BCH and TRX slightly different. So Litecoin and Ripple, you know, most of the majors have had, they've got, and a lot of the bigger alts, they have 4-day supply, have or had 4-day, 5-day supply. And then quite often, quite a few of them also had an untested 12-hour above. In the case of Ripple, this was actually a 2-day. supply because the structure was slightly different. On Litecoin, when the 4-day hit, I did comment in the channel. It was obviously first to hit and hit a good few days ago. And I said this one was one of the stronger ones, and I could see this potentially going through. So this one did run through up into the next daily alert that I had for daily supply up here and gave a decent reaction. I then had an alert for a short of the new 8-hour supply, which is still inside, but obviously is pushing higher inside now. Yeah, so that's still being stronger than one would have expected. BCH, I didn't have any additional short entries on. Just waiting for the next zone up there. So there's a daily supply up there and then a 3-month-old level. I think that's already been tested, that 3-month level on BCH if we get back there. TRX, I think I'd still look at this level. So I've left the alert alone because I'd still look at this level if it comes back there. But because I'm still so wary of what the market cap chart's doing, I'm just a bit conscious of not wanting to put in very, very aggressive longs on these. I'm still more inclined to kind of go, okay, this is a bearish retest. Let's look for shorts until I start to see them all breaking out. Like I say, TRX and BCH are exceptions. Ripple, again, I had the alert for 4-day supply, and I also put in the alert. Hi, Mindfreak. Yeah, I'll look at BNB in a sec in more detail. I was just brushing over it back then. Yeah, so Ripple had this 4-day supply here, and I had, again, like I say, commented in the Telegram channel that I thought it was possible it was going to run through this because it's got a 2-day above. And this is always the difficulty. It's like when you're looking at potentially a bearish retest with a short for C wave down, whether you're going to get that. If the market's weak, then you will get a rejection here more aggressively. If the market's stronger or if it wants to stop hunt, then you could go to the higher zones. And that's the problem we've had on all the majors really, because, well, this is a 2-day and all the majors have this 12-hour, untested 12 hours up here. But if they're weak, and I always get torn of what to alert, because if prices are weak, or if the market is weak, then it won't get back, potentially won't get back up to test here. It'll leave things people trapped before dropping. So anyway, yeah, those are the things I'm just watching on this locally at the moment. Don't think there's much more I want to say on that. So if you want to go back to previous streams, you can see the alerts that I've got for lower zones, but I don't want to go into detail on those right now. So BNB, since Mindfreak is asking, I will talk about this a little bit more. So this, obviously we had a breakout, but then came back below all-time high. So I don't love that, and now that's what we're testing now. So absolutely, obviously, you shouldn't be longing this right now. Nice long off the 12-hour demand down here. And then I was like, so this, I was more conservative on the short alert side. Can reject here. I had already tested here locally. But obviously because it's crypto as well, and it can do sort of sweeping large retests and more aggressive retests and want to stop hunt particular zones, I kind of went more conservative on this. And this is also obviously one of the stronger of the majors. So watch here for shorts if it comes back there. There's also, I think, 4 hours. So yeah, just watch this whole kind of area for shorts if it comes back there. But these are very tentative shorts. This is still a bullish chart. All I'm hoping is after a decent move up like this is that we're going to get some sort of decent retest. Then back down here, we've got monthly demand, 3-weekly demand. So I've got that. Those are my next alerts, or that's my next alert if we drop again. The only thing I don't love about this high time frame, but this has been running this chart, this area of consolidation since 2024. So like, I just don't love this rising waves thing we've got going on. So we'll see what happens on that. But on the macro. But this is going to be probably highly dependent on what BTC does. The other thing on BNB is I don't really like the BTC pair. So this is not something. There are two things. So like this is on an annual demand here. So like I want to be bullish on this on the macro. But then also, there's an annual demand. It can still go deeper inside, firstly, but it can also be very slow. So I'll show you the annual. So we had a very nice tap off the top of the annual there. So this is possible. This just puts in a giant green candle. However, it's also possible it goes deeper inside. It comes back to, $300 market can come all the way down to the bottom and still retain that that annual zone. And really what you wanted to see, once it had done that tap there back, was that August last year? Wow, I didn't know it was so long ago. But really that long ago? No, it's a this year candle, so it would have been February. So once it had done that test, what you really want to see is this take off pretty quickly in this type of style, not this rising wedge type thing. So it obviously still can, and if we're going to have all season, then maybe this will happen. If this gets its own ETF, then maybe you'll get a candle going to $5 or something like that. You do a TRX, who knows? But yeah, so it depends on do you have a time frame that you're trading this on, Mindfree? Are you trading, I assume you're not trading on an annual chart and holding it for a decade, but maybe you are. But yeah, anyway, no matter what time frame you're trading, so my preference would be to get a retest on this monthly demand back here. Like BTC is going to give a dump at some point, and this will probably dump too at some point. So on a higher time frame, I would watch that 650 area, and lower time. But I've said this before on the majors again, just to reiterate, if anybody's new to this, we do have a lot of stops that were left here back in June, July. I can do the Tesla chart. Let me finish the majors quickly first. Yeah, so I said back, these trend lines we got in June, July, it does make me a bit nervous if we do drop back down in here to test. So just be careful of wicks. So while I've got the alert setting across at the top here, this could wick inside, taking out those stops. But yeah, so that's BNB. And then Link is being stronger, but potentially is just swing failed. So I did have that alert for the 4-day supply on Link, which has just run through. Then we've got ADA, which hasn't quite got there yet. Excuse me. ADA hasn't quite hit that level yet. So in a 12-hour daily just below. Also has the untested 12-hour above, and Doggy's similar. Doggy doesn't have a 4-day, but I've alerted a 2-day in there. It's in a 12-hour just below. So I do think the majors could maybe push a little bit more. And maybe they're going to end up still bullish. They all have the same daily demands. I commented on that a minute ago. So if you want to long any of these, then I'd just wait for these retests of the dailies at least. Like, don't be longing now. And on the short side, they could push a bit higher. So while they're all in resistance, I can see the possibility of them pushing a touch higher inside, particularly given we're coming into the weekend. So Atom the same, it has a 4-day a little bit higher, and then it's got 2 12 hours at the top that aren't tested. DOT the same, 4-day a bit higher, another 12-hour untested. Sol, I haven't alerted anything lower because of the test on monthly demand, and also because it left, like, they're not really significant stops, but it did leave some stops there when it made the high previously. So got 2 alerts on that at the moment, which is a waste of alerts. Yeah, I also think Sol's probably one that's more likely if it wants to kind of run up than it could. But yeah, what I would suggest on all of these, finally on NEAR, the alert has gone for that 4-day supply today, but obviously hasn't quite hit it, so I might reset that. And NEAR I would probably still want, so NEAR would be the one I wouldn't buy on that daily demand. So if you want to buy something on the daily demand, I would suggest picking one of the ones that has hit the monthly demand at the low. So Sol, Doggy, or ADA, possibly Link, because that's just been stronger. But again, Link didn't hit the demand that I particularly wanted at the low. It's pretty hard to select, which is going to be the one to break out. But if you're in my group, you'll get alerts when things are hit anyway. And I'm still torn. Like, I don't know if I really want to alert these daily demands. I really want to see a bit more of what Bitcoin's going to do. Bitcoin's doing all right now. Yeah, so like all those, whether those majors hold the daily demands are all going to hinge on, whether Bitcoin's going to hold this daily demand and try and do another push up. So I guess we shall see. But that's the majors anyway. Yeah, I can look at Tesla quickly for you. On a sec, let me just find it. My other layout over my FX and indices layout, which I think Tesla should be in here somewhere. Nice consolidation going on. What time frame? kind of quite important what time frame, because it makes quite a big difference. Like, I don't chart these, so I do chart the equities mainly so I can see what the indices are doing, but I don't chart them on any sort of low time frame because I hate the candles and I don't trade them myself. But I hate these big gaps and things. But so Tesla like struggled to close the year strong. Like a lot of the major markets did close strong, but Tesla struggled and has also dropped back down, but it has hit 6-month demand, holding 6-month demand, and holding monthly inside it. And from a chart perspective, this is probably, it's still consolidating, but it's probably going to end up being a bullish breakout on this. Likely, I would say. The only thing countering that, I guess, is that everything else is strong, whereas this isn't. So if it's not breaking out while everything else is breaking out, then why not? And it's, since the whole market broadly moves together, I suppose equities don't so much. But yeah, this is looking decent at the moment. At least it's something you can go in with a defined stop. Yeah, like, I mean, they're still high on the high time frame chart, so I don't know what time frame you're looking at this on. But it's fairly decent at the moment. It's got weekly demand in there that's holding up this consolidation. It looks like it wants to break out of the triangle. Here it has managed to break out the high, like it didn't hold. So you'd have to be, so yes, I think this would probably break up. Be conscious of when it hits this 380 weekly supply. And if it does reject up there, then you want to be able to move your stop to break even and or take profit, depending on the time frame you're trading. But for now, at least it's giving quite a tight consolidation and a defined stop, so it's a pretty easy trade and easy invalidation if you're wrong. So yeah, that is Tesla for you. And then what else? Like how far are we? An hour and a half now. How much do I want to talk about alts is the burning question. So normally I would go through some of the alerts I've had coming in. And like I said, I'm losing my voice a bit, and I stick by kind of what I've said previously, that I'm still just sorting the list, a very long watch list, by top gainers and top losers. At the moment, OG is a top gainer. OG did have an alert yesterday. And I'm just sorting the list by top gainers and top losers and seeing seeing what potentially is going to hit resistance and I can short back down and vice versa. So for example, like Magic was going up. Actually I probably set this alert a while ago. Actually, I think I might have said it when it was coming into here, and then it took some time to come down, but it's coming into 2-month supply. So if I see this coming up, I'm like, right, I'm gonna set an alert for 2-month supply and see what happens when it hits that, and see if I can get the short back down. You're not looking for that blind entry when it first hits. You're looking for the reaction, and then to get an entry like this much more tightly to get the drop. So yeah, that's Magic. ORCA's pretty nice because it's hard. I haven't had an alert on this, but I've had so many alerts set for these types of zones. I even did a look at this the other day. Not sure, I can't remember when I looked at this, but I've had so many alerts set for these retests. And you can even see this, this hit 3-week demand here. So the alert would have gone, I don't know, 18th to 20th of June, but then it's taken, I don't know, 2 weeks plus to break out. So, I don't want to be holding things for 2 weeks and then, hoping that you're in this run. Or similarly, it's gone up in the last 2 days here, took 4 days to do it, so that's fine. But what's to know that ORCA's going to go up when you see on the list there's the sorting just doesn't work very well on this. But, so as I've said, you've got 10 or 15 that are above 13%, in this case 14%, and then you've got a whole 500 or so that are in the plus 123% or minus 123%. So you can spend an awful lot of time waiting for alts to break out. So it is much easier to trade them like after they've dropped or when they've already gone up. And in fact, the ones that have gone up are generally the more reliable. It's more reliable to take the shorts than to take the longs. So I don't know, this is not the best example. I've got two here. So this has hit a 4-hour demand. This was very high risk, but I thought it potentially was nice because of all the stops here. But I did say there were a couple of 4-hour demands stacked, and then there's also an untested one down here. So I said it's pretty high risk. So you can keep an eye on this and see if it gives an up move. Then another example, better example, maybe this is a more aggressive entry on the daily demand here. It's also got a 2-week a bit lower, so I have to reset the alert for lower if it wants to go back there. But again, just the initial test, and you're better off, I think, just scalping these for small moves, you know, even if you just scalp it up into here and then potentially scalp it back down again for the short on the short side, than holding and hoping you're going to be in the one thing that than holding and hoping you're in the one coin that's going to go like that, because that's pretty hard to pick. It's only even up a few percent. That was magic before. TROLLSOL was a really nice one. Well, that's gone again. Okay, so another nice move again today. I haven't tried to get in another entry on this. I did have an alert, I think, on here, but I deleted that yesterday because I thought now if it comes down, it's probably just going to collapse. So I did this one because this is a monthly demand at the bottom. But yeah, you know, you can get in these when they move, you know, just pick 4-hour or 8-hour or 12-hour demands, and then just try and get in the little swings, like what for the few that have already broken out like this. So we have this, and we have MYX seems to have disappeared off the list, which makes me think if it's dumped now. Let me see. Hasn't dumped significantly, but again, you know, this you would have had to get in on 1-hour or 2-hour demands to be able to try and jump into the PA here. But these are the ones, you know, you can try and get into these as scalps, but they're not ones that I'm really like, I'll put an alert like this, for example, which I think I did when it was coming down here. And if it doesn't get near me, then it becomes, you know, this is much less reliable. If this comes down now, the chance of it bouncing here are much smaller. If I see an 8 or 12-hour demand, I'm more inclined to. So let's look at like ZORA, for example. So ZORA, these are my preferred ones, like when you've got a big up move, but it has made, in this case, it was a 2-day demand. It made a 2-day demand. So it was breakouts. We had the alert went for all-time high. Obviously, did have short that didn't work down here. Some decent long entry, even just to start this off. But to know, again, to hold it up here when it's like, you know, there's 5 or 10 maximum of the 700 plus coins, and these are just the ones that I'm charting, that are actually going to make this kind of move. So the alert went for all-time high. So then I said, try and get in on long and retest here. So that gave a decent move. And then to come back to test 2-day demand, and is now up in daily supply. So again, this might just bounce around here for a while. But would be my preferred type of entry. Like look for the big moves, find the new demands, 12-hour, 8-hour. 8-hour really is probably the minimum, maybe 4, but 4 I don't like. I tend to see 4 hours stop hunted a lot more than 8-hour. 8, I prefer 8, 12, and 1 day, or anything higher, obviously. If you go too high, then you're not going to get an aggressive move, though. So if it's a weekly or something like that, then that's great. But the chances of it having a very quick bounce off a weekly becomes smaller. Like you want to get into the momentum in the current move. Unless it's a weekly that's just created and then tested immediately after the week closes, that probably is the exception. I'm trying to think because I had a few of these similar to ZORA, but I can't remember what they are now. And that's the other problem with having 8,000 coins is you don't remember which ones. I feel like I want to say SHM. I feel like that also might have been delisted. Yeah, it got delisted. It wasn't that one anyway. Or SHX. SHM got delisted. SHX. Yeah, there's another one. So this is probably worth keeping your eyes on here. So what have we got? We've now made a new 5-day and held a new 5-day demand there. So I had an alert for 2-day demand, which was held and pushed up, and now we've made a new 5-day. Got a weekly. Might make a new 4 hours sitting on top of that today. And has a new daily in as well. So yeah, you can watch this to see if it gives a retest around the 20 to 21 mark, just in here, and see if that gives you another up move on this. That might be quite nice. But yeah, these are the types of things. So these are the best examples of what you're looking for, because I know everybody likes the long, but really shorts are much better. But I know people like the long, so I'm giving long examples. So these kind of aggressive long entries, particularly when you've got, if you can do alerts like I do for breakouts, and then see if they make new demand that you can then trade for better long end. Also, for you can trade for the bigger moves once they're broken out. And I don't think of any other examples, and maybe I'll have just a quick look at the things that people like. Actually, let me look at Gorilla. Because Gorilla I had short some, but I actually thought maybe this would be a breakout kind of scenario. I did think this might take the stops there, so that's not surprising. Yeah, that's annoying. So another one I had an alert for 2-day demand. I think that's in there, so it's made a 2-day demand. So I haven't the alert's still there, but it tested it. It had already tested it probably on the daily and didn't quite come back the next day to test this zone. But yeah, an example of me trying to give a slightly more aggressive entry there. Difficulty on this is that it is a monthly supply. Update my TradingView made a change where they rather annoyingly they put any lines that you had text. So previously you had text here, but there was an on-off button. So I had a lot of lines that had text that was off, but there was text in here because I'd copied and pasted lines and things like that. And what they did is remove the on-off button such that it's always on. And then I messaged them about it, and they're like, "Oh, you can just delete it." And I said, "I have 700 charts, and you've just made half my weekly lines now 3-week, and my monthly lines now 3-month. So now it means I have to recheck." I mean, it's not a critical, massive problem, but there are 700 charts. I'm like, please think about it before you actually make a change like that because the impact of something like that is actually quite big. Because now I look at charts, and I'm like, that's not a 3-month level, that's a monthly level. Anyway, yeah, I kind of like this chart, so I think this is worth an eye. That 2-day, if it gets hit again, this 3-day, if it comes down a bit lower, and I think there's a 5-day inside there. Again, be conscious there's in resistance here. But yeah, I'd like to see a nice retest on this. Let's see what FARTCOIN is doing. I saw somebody earlier saying this looks like a lovely chart on the daily. I literally have no idea what they're talking about. I have no idea why somebody says this looks like a lovely chart on the daily. If you know, answers on a postcard, please, or in the comments, let me know. Because I don't think it looks lovely in the slightest. I think it looks like a contribution. But what I do think it looks lovely on is the 2-month. Lovely-ish. Does have a 2-month demand. So I kind of stopped putting shorts in on this once I can recognize it had the 2-month demand. What it now also has, though, is a monthly supply. So in fact, I'm more inclined now to short this. So I don't think this looks remotely lovely on the daily. And I have at the moment I'm going to put an alert in more aggressively than this, actually. So I did have an alert up here in the 2-day supply inside the monthly, but mainly because it's got the 2-month demand. So basically 1 month supply, large zone, equals large zone. I've got a Spanish keyboard, so I'm having to guess where the punctuation is. Still coming from 2-month demand. So yeah, you want to see if it's going to give a reaction here. So that's more aggressive. Short could still run up high inside, but yeah, so I've become more short bias on this. But we are still on 2-month demand, so it's not something I would say, yeah, blindly short. However, I just don't know why somebody would say it looks nice on the daily. I don't know what would look nice. I mean, I would say, like, for example, here, maybe it would look nice on the daily, because I would see it's got space to go up, even if you were saying you were going to short this supply, which I was at that stage. it's got space to go up. It's, you know, it's broken a downtrend. It's started to make an uptrend, and it's got daily demand. So that to me is nice on the daily. If this closes above here, let me actually, I'm looking at 2-day. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think that looks nice on the daily. I think they might be saying it purely because it's on support. Like it's on because we're back on this zone. But I see this as it's got, you know, 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, 4 hits, and we're now on the 5th hit. And all of those hits really haven't gone very far, and even this one that's gone almost to the bottom of it was unable to, just only swing failed the high. So that to me is telling me this is not strong demand. So now we have monthly supply. I'm certainly not confident of looking for, and I've got a 3-week level there that's probably weekly. Yeah, so I'm definitely not confident of looking for longs on this here. It has a support, but beyond that, I don't know. Anyway, each to their own. So yeah, this might wick up higher, but I'm just putting an aggressive alert on that just so I can keep an eye on it and see what happens when it comes into this level. Okay, like I say, it is coming off 2-month demand, but I mean, what you can, if you want to trade this sort of more effectively, like wait till it goes, it does another little run up. Obviously, check that Bitcoin's not breaking out or doing something that's going to drag the entire alt market up. But you could just trade it on a break of the trend line. So, you know, if it starts to follow the trend line like this, then leave it alone. But if you see a break of a trend line, what you're looking for is a kind of decent candle through the trend line, and then you short the retest. So that's kind of what you're looking for, to look for shorts on that. PENGU, what? I'll do PENGU and SUI, because those are the ones that people ask about a lot. So PENGU I did actually have so this was a bit of a high risk short entry. I did have a short alert on that that went earlier today, but it hasn't quite hit the level. It's a pretty high risk. Like I'm literally looking for a potential shorts on this because it's back in this consolidation at the start. You know, I mean, like people are very bullish on this, so I'm not sure if this is just going to run up from here. Let me think. So yeah, and when you do have that one coin that everybody's trading long on, it tends to be somewhat unwise to be the only person shorting it. But so yeah, at the moment it's still holding 4-day demand, so it's still in an uptrend on the 4-day. You know, we're still back to test here, so this is still a high risk short. But you know, if it does have a 2-day supply like this, then you know, actually it has tested on a wick there. So again, it's not ideal. And if this makes 2-day demand, so by the end of the day today, this might create a 2-day demand there, in which case it's probably becomes significantly less viable. And then I've got an alert at all-time high just to look at what the reaction is there if it comes back. So at the moment, this is probably too strong. And it's if Bitcoin starts to fall, then maybe this will fall along with it. Just see what that's doing right now. So Ether came back and made a new high since I've been talking. But Bitcoin hasn't. Bitcoin's just retraced a little bit and still making a lower high there. Yeah, so anyway, this is, needs to see the consolidation through here. If you bought this 4-day demand, that's great. You know, you can hold with the stop loss underneath that 4-day. It does, in the favor of the shorts, actually, it does have pendulum stops through there. So yeah, but this needs just a little bit more time. So it's, once it's hit demand, it's made new supply, then you're looking for what the consolidation does. Like, is this going to make some sort of a triangle? Or is it going to start to break down? It's going to make a bull flag, and it might come down in here and take some of those stops. If it stop hunts that low, if it stop hunts that low and then pushes quickly back inside, then we can potentially look for longs on that later. It's very early for either direction, quite honestly. And then finally, I will look at SUI because everybody always asks me for it. I did do analysis on this in the Telegram channel a couple of days ago. I can't even remember what I said though, to be fair. So yeah, it has made a new monthly demand. I don't know why I haven't got that drawn in. It's might be. So it actually has made a new monthly demand. I need to check, actually, maybe I didn't notice that in the Telegram channel, so I need to check that really. Got a monthly there, but it's also, it's kind of, could still close as a swing fair on the 2-month chart, but this is now in monthly demand. I think I had the alert here for long entry if it comes back down there, whilst being conscious of the stops. Similar to everything else, it's got this 4-day or 5-day supply above now, and it's just testing it. So it's just like, is it going to break, continue up from here? But I need to check that analysis I did, because if I did forget that it's got, or not noticed that it's got monthly demand, that kind of changes significantly. Yeah, this becomes much more interesting now it's made coming off this monthly, because if this holds, it could have a decent move up from here. Yeah, so that's SUI anyway. It's getting late now, and I don't know if Mindfreak's still there. FYVM joined and left. I don't know who that is. But yeah, I hope this is useful, and I will try and get to doing more shorts and things like that. Please like and subscribe if you're interested. Please just like even if you're not interested, because then more people will join, and then people can ask for what other people want, and I'll have more and more insight into what people actually want to see. Yeah, please share all over the place and support me, because I'm giving you this content because I'm a very nice person. Anyway, have a great weekend, and hit me up in the comments or on Telegram if you have any questions or want anything charted or anything like that. And have a good evening. Bye.